Good morning. Thanks again for tuning in. I am coming to you guys today from Anandra, the little healing yurt once again. Such a beautiful space to be doing this work and to be speaking my vulnerability with all of you. What I wanted to talk about today was the voice of the victim and how that is changing through our transition that we're all going through at the moment. I'm noticing a big change in this voice in the people that I work with and the people around me. And what I'm noticing is that through our collective experience, and you could call it collective trauma if you wanted to, I know it will be looked upon as that in years to come. The voice of the victim changes when there's a collective experience because, quite simply, poor us doesn't resonate the same as poor me. So the language I'm hearing from people is changing. Now, I wanted to deconstruct this victim voice a little bit so that we can understand through awareness what's happening and where it's coming from in an energetic space. And then also how to divert this narrative so that it doesn't create a snowball effect in us. And I think that's really important. A lot of us want to be free of this voice. Even those people that are aware that they are using a victim mentality, awareness still doesn't get us to the point of change. So we need an action plan as always. So knowledge without action doesn't really cause changes in our lives. We need the action part. So let's dive deep into it. The voice of the victim is something that we have developed in order to get something that we crave. Now, those of you that already know about shadow values will be familiar with these terms. And those that don't, you can just go back to my shadow value videos and have a look, but it's pretty easy to grasp anyway. So my experience is that the voice of the victim is a mechanism that we use because we are craving attention. So the voice of the victim really is our mechanism for getting attention from other people, from ourselves, from the world around us, from our environment. Now, that's not a bad thing. As I say in my shadow value work, attention is not a bad thing. Attention is a great thing. And we need it, we crave it. But it's usually working in the background. That's why it says shadow value. Now, attention feels a little bit like we're still a little kid. But when we grow up, it can manifest as a craving for appreciation or for recognition. Right? And when we are stuck in a victim mentality, when we are focusing on our problems and everything that's happened to us and how it hasn't worked out for us, when we use that mechanism to get that attention, it does work. But notice that it's somewhat disempowering and it's short-lived. So if we're going to get our shadow values met, I like them to be met in empowering ways that are sustainable, right? When it's empowering and we do it through awareness and conscious choice, the kickback from that lasts a long time. You know, if you get attention from something that serves you and serves other people, your kickback mechanism for that, your serotonin, your dopamine, all the happy chemicals, they last a long time. They can last days, weeks, months through something that feels really empowering and is made through conscious choice. But if we go down a disempowering path, that kickback of attention doesn't feel quite right. And I know a lot of people that have created a victim mentality habitually. They are so used to getting attention through talking about their problems, and the biggest part through comparing their problems to other people's, that they form an obsession with getting attention from this way, right? And that is understandable. I can totally relate to that. But we need to unravel it. and we need to understand where it's coming from. So this need for attention and the particularly risky action of comparing yourself to other people is really a breeding ground for self-judgment and self-criticism. Now, because we're talking about these areas, we are definitely talking about the solar plexus. So when the victim voice over-identifies with the parts of our life that we don't feel good about, we create an overinflation of the solar plexus. The solar plexus has too much energy. And it's not energy that is healing in a way. It gets slower, it gets stuck. And when the solar plexus energy, when there's too much going on there, we notice digestive problems, we notice low self-worth, low self-esteem. Obviously, the self-judgment and criticism starts to elevate. People can often put on weight or develop symptoms in that area, whether it's a diaphragm thing, not digesting their food, bloating, you name it. And to add on to that, if we give too much power to the solar plexus, if we're constantly thinking about who we are, what's our identity, what's part of our worth, are we good enough, then we are digesting this so much that we don't actually digest our food properly. The blood that needs to be in the stomach and in the digestive system when we eat is responsible for extracting the nutrients from our food and digesting them and putting them all sorts of places in our body to provide nourishment. If we are overthinking all the time, particularly when we eat, all the blood and the cheese in our brain, digesting who we are, and we're not even getting the power and the nutrients from our food that possibly we were getting before. So I do see this quite a lot. Solar plexus takes up too much energy, too much power, too much influence. But if we could just move that energy up one more chakra system to the heart would be able to govern, as it beautifully and naturally does, how we can connect and what is our truth and how to love ourselves and the world quite intuitively and easily without it needing to be churned and digested all the time. And we keep the energy in the solar plexus through this victim voice that is constantly looking for the attention towards our identity that we crave. Now, with all that energy in the solar plexus, I usually find that the sacral chakra doesn't have as much power as it needs. Often we bypass that area, too hard to look at, too uncomfortable. But if we came into our dynamic, powerful, creative, sexual nature, and we gave that more energy, knowing that that would fuel naturally a really big part of who we are, that we wouldn't have to digest and prove and think about whether we're good enough, because it would just be there. It's instinctual. So the relationship between the victim archetype and the voice of the victim, and whether that's in your own mind or how you're communicating with others, know that you are looking for attention. Attention's not bad, attention is good. But attention can be met in many different ways. And the right question is, how do I get attention through empowering ways? But also, I have a diversion question for you. If you find yourself stuck in victim voice, if you're wound sharing with others, if you're constantly talking about your past and your trauma and everything that happened that you didn't like, if you can't stop the narrative in your voice about how everything's not the way that you want it to be, here is your question. Very simple. What would you prefer to be feeling right now? Not what are you feeling, not what that event made you feel, not what that person makes you feel because you're comparing yourself, not what social media makes you feel. What would you prefer to be feeling? And when you ask that question, most people go straight into the heart. Love, connection, fun, freedom, abundance, right? That's love. That's all love language. The next question is, how do I cultivate that? How do I go towards love and get away from this cycle that I'm in? What makes me feel loved? How can I love myself? What's fun? What's free? How can I cultivate abundance? Right? You are diverting the program. You are interrupting the habit, and you are focusing on something different. Focus is really important. Taking a different perspective is really important. But it's going to take courage from you to move away from that victim voice. It is not serving you. It will not serve you. And everybody knows at this time that we're all going through something. So it's not the right time to be focusing on everything that's going wrong. Focus on what you want to be feeling, right? That's the first step. Move into the heart space. Draw power from your creative sexual self. Don't put so much power on your identity. Your identity will take care of itself if you look towards these other centers. Your identity doesn't need to be digested. Your worth doesn't need to be digested all the time. Get out of your mind. Move into your heart. And there you'll find connection with ease, love with ease. Another question you can try is, if I felt completely loved, totally and utterly loved, what would I be doing differently? Write it down. Journal it. Write until you can't write anymore. Change your focus. That archetype doesn't have to come with you. Doesn't mean that you completely eradicate it. It has its purpose at times, but it doesn't have to be inflated the way that I've seen it inflated. I hope some of this resonates with all of you. And let's bring the power back to the heart space. And if you find yourself stuck in a victim mentality, it's not a bad thing. It's what you've been taught. But let's divert that energy somewhere else, somewhere where it's really needed. As always, reach out if this resonates and you want to comment below or send me a message. Just offering some information in a vulnerable space. And I'll see you all again soon. Much love. Have a great day. Thank you.